Class Online School. We are here to take social study as a subject. And in our class today, we are going to take the introductory part of social studies. And that's why we have our topic, meaning and scope of social studies. For my junior secondary students, this is a compulsory subject for you. And so, I want you to flow along as we go on this subject. Today we are going to cover a number of things. If time permits, we'll cover all that we have here. If time did not permit us, we'll cover some of them and take the rest over to the next class. So let's see how we go for today's class. We're going to cover the meaning of social studies, the scope that social study covers. We're going to talk about the nature of social study, the importance, the objectives of studying social study. What is social studies? Social study is the study of man and his environment. The study of man and his environment. Man here means human being, you and I. Humans occupying the earth are humans here. Then environment means the areas in which man occupies. So social study deals with the study of man and his environment. Now let's try to use this picture to define or explain what social study means. This is man. Now, man interacts with his social environment. Man equally interacts with his physical environment. And then man interacts with the science and technology being produced to help man live a better life. So, as we explain social studies as the study of man and his environment, man means you and I as a human being. His environment, where he occupies, as I've said before. And when you use this picture, you will see what social study is going to cover. That means we are going to cover man and his social environment, man and his physical environment, and man and his science and technological advancement. These are what we are going to cover in social study. But don't forget that social study is centered on man, humans, as it is. So having known the meaning of social study, that it has to do with man and his environment, remember that man lives among its fellow man. I live among other people. You live among other people. We are not just an island, just one person on earth. No, there are other people that live around us. And we live in houses. That is where the technology will come into play. Because without the advancement of science and technology, most materials we use to build our home will not come about. Another thing we are going to talk about is how man interacts with each other. That is another thing we'll talk about in social studies. So having known the meaning of social studies, don't forget this diagram as we're explaining social studies. We're going to talk about the scope of social study. What do we mean by scope? Scope has to do with what social study covers. What is it that social study covers? Areas that social study covers. So we are going to discuss a number of areas where social study covers. What are the scope? Number one, social study help man to know that they are supposed to obey laws. So social study covers how man have to obey laws of the land that he occupies. Another thing that social study covers is why it is necessary to pay tax. We need development. We need advancement. What is man's obligation to his society in order to fit into the society well? He has to pay tax to bring in development, because these tax are utilized to bring about infrastructure and other development that will aid man. Another scope is that people have to understand their rights as citizens. Every one of us have rights. freedom that we own, and other things that makes us to be functional human being or functional persons in the society. So that's another thing. Every one of us needs to cooperate with each other for peace and unity to reign. Social study helps man to see how they interact, interrelate, help to live peacefully among each other. We have mentioned a number of scope now. We've mentioned like 4. Paying of tax, obeying the law, living in peace, then respecting the rights of others. Another one is social study help us to know when we are to vote and who we are to vote for. That's another scope. Then we see that in social study we have some aspect of agriculture in it. Textiles, how we produce our clothing, either from textiles material or from animal skin, or from whichever material that will help us to clothe ourselves as individuals. That's another scope that social study covers. And man needs to live in peace, to coexist with each other in peace for them to function effectively. Because if there is chaos, if there is problem around man, man cannot function effectively. If there is no peace in your environment, you can't even be relaxed to live as a human. So social study helps to promote peace among people who live together. We are all social human beings. Sometimes they say we are social animals. So social study helps us to see how we can socialize among groups. That's what we see. We form groups of individuals who carry out a particular interest, common interest, to achieve a particular goal and objective. That's another scope that we'll cover here in social study. Then social study gives us that analytical way of thinking in order to solve problems that surrounds our society. The society is full of problems. Social study exposes you to this problem. How will this problem be solved? How will you be able to handle them and then function well? So I have mentioned the scope of social studies. Now, having discussed the scope, we are going to the nature of social study. What do we mean by the nature of social study? It has to do with what are those areas that social study have to help us in our life. Social study help man to live peacefully among member society, among the group. It helps man to act responsibly, to benefit from other members. If you as an individual do not act responsibly to the other person, then you can't function well. So if you take note, the scope and the nature almost looks alike, but there are little differences. This one now, the first one we talk about, has to do with the responsibility that you as an individual have to keep in mind in order to help you and help others to fit in to the society well. Social study helps us to have an overview of the world, understanding the position of the country where you live and how you can interact with the world in general. Even if we live in Nigeria, as Nigerians, we equally interact with the world. Thanks to technology, technology have made the world into a small global world. And so we are able to know what's happening in other countries and see how we can interact with other countries or other things happening in the world to fit into the environment we find ourselves. And there are various ways we can interact with the world. We interact with the world through communication. We interact with the world through transportation, because we have to transport ourselves to other places in order for us to get there. And other modern technology that seemingly take us to other places where we have not been. So you can be in Nigeria and interact with people in other parts of the world. Social study makes us be aware of the differences of culture, ethnic groups, the race, the kind of racial or ethnic groups, okay, let me say the different racial group that we have. So these are what the scope of social study helps us, the nature of social study helps us. We are moving to the fourth nature of social study. So before I go to the number 4 point, under culture, social study helps us to know how different cultural groups dress, the language they use, and other things that affect each of these cultural groups. Because as a cultural group, we have different way we cook our food, different way we speak our language, and different way we dress. So social study will expose you to these areas. So now let's go to number 4 in proper. The fourth one is that social study indicates clearly that we are all human beings and from the same Homo sapien group of people. So we are all individuals that come from same species. Our difference, notwithstanding, we should see and take ourselves as one, even if we are different, even if individual differences comes to play. Since we are the same species of human being, we are able to cope with ourselves. Social study helps you to know that. Then the next point we are going to is, as the society changes, social study helps us to know that society changes, development changes, technology changes. So in the world we are today, it is not what goes around 10 years ago that still goes around today as we live. The way technology have advanced, it's not the same way it was 10 years ago. So social study helps you to know the level of advancement that we have come to. That's why in that diagram that I have wiped off, that I used to explain what social study is. If you remember, we talked about the science and technology as it interacts with human. So social study, like I told you, that helps you to explain what social study is. Social study helps us to know how science and technology that are being developed helps to interact with humans. And so it helps youth, it helps children, it helps every individual, even adults, to know that we have passed this stage. We've gone to other level of improvement. And these improvements helps us to fit in well. Let's take for example, if you ask your parents 20 years ago, when there was no era of mobile device that we used to communicate, you see them take a long journey to Lagos, to other places, in order to see their relatives or to see their children. But today, a simple hello can get you across to your family members and your mind will be in a relaxed mood. So technology have actually eased our life in such a great way. That's another thing that social study helps us to understand, that technology is not static. It grows, it develops, it advances with the passage of years. Then lastly, social study is an integrated subject. That's why I wrote out this subject. It is an integrated subject. It covers a whole lot of subject area. And so if you are able to study social study very effectively, you will do well in these subject areas. What are the integrated subjects that social study covers? One, economics. Another one, political science. We have sociology. We have religion. We have history. We have geography. We have physiology, anthropology, and ethics. These are the subject areas that social study covers. So if you're able to pay attention to social study as a course and you get yourself acquainted with the subject area and things that covers it, the scope, you will be able to fit into any of these subject area and know them very well. So pay attention as we go on in this social study class so that you'll be able to understand a number of things as they interact together with this subject area, your economics, your political science, sociology, and a host of others. So, since it's an integrated subject, it helps us to have wide horizon of knowledge, broadens our knowledge, helps us to understand the world, helps us to talk as knowledgeable person. Remember, an educated person is one who knows a little about different things. And you knowing a little about different things, knowing a little about economics, a little about politics, a little about sociology, makes you a versatile human being. Social study will expose you to that. So I have taken the nature of social studies. We're moving down to the importance of social study. What are the importance of social study? Number one, it helps us to understand our environment. Since social study helps us to understand our environment, it helps us to find the problems that is associated with the environment and help us to provide solution or look for solution to such problems that affect our environment. That is one of the importance why you need social study, exposing you to your environment, helping you see the problem, helping you find solution to the problem. It trains students to behave in a way that makes them better citizens, fit into your society, into your environment, into your surrounding very well. Because social study helps you, if you remember when I talked about the scope, it helps you to be law-abiding and obedient citizen. So as a child, if you understand social study, it helps you to know the norm and the don'ts of the society. That which you are not supposed to do, you stay away from it. That which you are supposed to do, you will do it. And then you'll be a responsible student, you'll be a responsible child, and you'll be a responsible adult. So it helps you to know how to behave effectively as a human being. And then it inculcates the right value into students. What are the values that the society, your country requires of you? What are the freedom you possess, and what are the restriction you possess? These are what social study helps you to learn. That is another importance. Social study helps you to be a good leader. Teaches you the quality of a good leader and how you lead well. It equally teaches you about how you can be a good follower, to be submissive to those who are leading, so that leadership can be sweet. Because if a leader is leading and the followers are not following very well, leadership becomes a burden to those who are leading. It helps students to develop good moral judgment, good sense of judgment, because you learn morality in social study. You learn how you have to behave. Good judgment, decision making, helps you to make good decision. Because you know the problems surrounding your environment, you'll be able to know how to provide a solution. So it gives you good mental judgment on how to handle situation. And social study helps us to have global information about what is happening in the world. What is happening in the world? Through social study, through technology, through advancement in the technological world, it helps us to interact with the world and help us to know what is going on around the world where we exist as individuals who live in the country or in the world at large. Then, it gives students the opportunity to face the world and be able to fit into the world. Because you are exposed to so many things that the world offers, that the society offers, that the environment offers, you know what can happen. Then you can fit into the system very well. But if you are ignorant of how your environment, how your system works, how your surrounding work, how your country work, then you cannot fit in as an individual. Remember, we are still under the importance. We're telling you reason why you need social study as a subject. And equally, social study helps us to understand the worth of our culture. We don't want to throw our cultural heritage out in the expense of buying other people's cultural idea. We want to retain our culture. So social study exposes us to different ethnic groups and different cultural behavior as regards our food, our clothing, our languages, and the rest of them. So they help us to hold on to it, get ourselves attached to it, and be able to defend who we are as an ethnic group. Then, social study helps us to develop positive thinking toward others. If you don't live in peace with others, then you cannot live as a good functional human being. So social study helps you to see how you can interact, live in peace with people around you, with the world at large. So those are the importance of social studies. Having known the importance of social studies, what are the objectives of social studies? Social study helps us to work hard as an individual and be honest as individual. So it helps us to promote hard work, honesty in the society. That is one of the objectives of social study. That's one of the reasons why we need social study as a subject. Promote hard work and honesty. Another one is to help us learn concepts, acquire useful skills, habits, good attitude toward one another, and nation building. Social study helps us to know how we can live with one another. It helps us to see how we can imbibe some skills to help us function, have our daily bread, and help us to be able to help ourselves economically. And another thing is, it helps us to develop good attitude towards life. You see, so many persons today are suffering from depression. So many persons today have mental health because of one thing or the other. Of course, social study as a subject do not want us to fall victim into those areas, though they can be medical. But if it is a real life situation that we fall into such areas, social study helps us to help ourselves out, because it exposes us to the world. See how we can socialize with people in general so that we can be functional human beings. That's another objective. It helps us to understand the usefulness of being a good citizen. A lot of persons want to be good citizens of the country where they belong. So as Nigerians, we want to be good citizens of our country so that we can help our leaders and help ourselves as followers to promote peace among member states or in the nation as a whole. Then another thing is, it helps us to understand the law of the land. In your citizenship education or civic education, you understand the laws that you as a citizen hold, you as a citizen have to possess, and the restriction you have. So laws are equally important. It helps us to understand the importance of family. It helps us to understand the importance of peer groups. It helps us to know the importance of our leaders. So as a family, as those belonging to peer group, and as people who live in a country, it helps us to know what we are supposed to do. It helps us to appreciate our various religious background, our various race, our various culture, as it concerns us as human beings that live in a particular part of the world. So it helps us to know what are our religious norms, what are our cultural norms, and what are our values as humans. And lastly, to acquire the right type of attributes required for the achievement of goals as Nigerians. Nigerians as a country have their goals and objectives they want to meet. And as individuals living in a country, or as individuals who are Nigerians, we want the country to achieve these goals, these objectives, so that we can function as Nigerians and we can help to develop Nigeria as a country and promote peace among member states. So social studies is an interesting course. It helps you to understand yourself as a human, your environment, the social group, the technology that we use today. So please follow along as we come with this subject so that you can see how you can fit into these integrated subjects that we have under social studies, and you will be happy you did. If you have not subscribed to our channel on Class Online School, feel free to subscribe. If you have subscribed, share our content. If this content actually added value to your study habit or to your life, give us a thumb up and we appreciate you. Give us comment below the comment box. Ask your question if you have question, and we will be ready to give you feedback. We are happy you dropped by. Thank you for being part of this class. Please, once again, go over your class and master all that we have studied today. And until next time, we're going to see you in other subject areas.